An old man once hailed as the strongest in the world lies on his deathbed, surrounded by the gentle whispers of his children and grandchildren. They've gathered close, sensing that his time is near. His voice, though weak, carries a calm assurance. He tells them he has lived a long, fulfilling life and harbors no regrets. But that's a lie. Decades earlier, the same man, Gilus Elragon, known across the world as the strongest human to ever live, embarked on a legendary quest. He battled fiercely against a divine dragon guardian, a creature of immense power, to reach a golden fruit rumored to grant immortality. He ate the fruit and felt divine energy surge through his veins, and spent the rest of his life as a martial arts legend. Even so, he never reached the true peak he had chased since he was a kid. Now on his deathbed, he quietly admits to himself that if he had more time, he would chase that same dream all over again without a second thought. Then, his eyes suddenly open again. At first, he thinks he simply drifted off for a moment. But when he raises his hand, he freezes. It isn't his hand anymore. It's tiny, soft, a baby's hand. After a moment, the truth finally sinks in. The golden fruit never granted immortality. It granted reincarnation. And honestly, he isn't even upset. A second chance to reach the peak of martial arts? He'll gladly take it. He's been reborn 1,000 years into the future, back into his own family line, inside a nursery filled with crying infants waiting to be fed. Some maids walk in to feed the babies, but the bottles aren't filled with milk. They're filled with ancient dragon blood. Then he watches in horror as one of the other test subjects, a baby goblin, is fed first. The goblin gulps the entire bottle down and instantly explodes into a cloud of blood. The entire room goes silent for a moment. Zeke only has one thought. Well, that's not a good sign. Before he can even panic, a maid walks over and shoves another bottle straight into his mouth. At this point, he doesn't exactly have a choice, so he drinks it. After all, free power is still free power, even if it might kill him. The moment the dragon blood enters his body, two ancient dragon bloodlines begin tearing into each other, each trying to take complete control of his tiny body. The pain is unlike anything he's ever experienced. To stop himself from losing his mind, he kept repeating his own name over and over. It's the only thing keeping his identity from being swallowed whole. Against all odds, he survives. The two dragon bloodlines are completely absorbed into his body, something that should have been impossible. After enduring an ordeal that would have killed almost anyone else, he finally passes out from exhaustion. His second life has officially begun. 7 years pass. During that time, Zeke trains like an absolute maniac. He does one-handed push-up with a massive rock on his feet, pushing his small body far beyond what any normal 7-year-old should be capable of. Because in this world, strength is measured in stars. Each star represents a new level of source power awakened inside a person's inner universe. The more stars you awaken, the stronger you become. In his previous life, Zeke reached 10 stars, a level no one else in history had ever achieved. Now, he's stuck at just 1 star. And honestly, that annoys him more than anything else. What makes it even worse is that every child who survives the dragon blood trial is supposed to receive proper martial training from the family. Everyone, except him. Being the family head's illegitimate son clearly doesn't earn you many favors. One afternoon, Zeke heads into the forest for one of his usual training sessions. As if lifting boulders wasn't enough, he's now eating wild poisonous herbs to build up poison resistance. The taste is awful, but according to Zeke, suffering now is better than dying later. As he continues deeper into the forest, he suddenly stops. Someone is watching him. He can feel their gaze following his every move. No matter where he goes, the presence never disappears. After putting up with it for a while, he sighs. If you're going to follow me, you might as well come out. Instead of waiting for an answer, Zeke slips into the tall grass. That's when he senses something else. A dark, oppressive aura. Looking ahead, he spots an anger boar covered in a strange black mist. Even in all his adventures in his previous life, he's never seen anything like it. The moment Zeke steps out, the beast notices him and charges without hesitation. Instead of panicking, he smiles. Finally, something interesting. The boar lunges forward, but Zeke dodges at the last second, gathers source power into his fist, and drives a single punch straight through its body. The beast drops instantly. Looking at his fist, Zeke can't help but grin. Not bad. Even at 1 star, I'm stronger than I expected. He throws the dead boar over his shoulder and mutters that things will only get better once he reaches a higher star level. Meanwhile, hidden in the shadows, the cloaked man who had been following him the entire time could only stare. He had been ordered to secretly monitor Zeke because, illegitimate or not, he was still the son of the family head. But what he had just witnessed made no sense. Without receiving any proper training, Zeke had already reached 1 star. He had sensed someone who was hiding his presence, and he had killed an anger boar with a single punch. The man recalled that Zeke's mother died shortly after giving birth to him, while the family head had shown little interest in the boy ever since. There shouldn't have been anyone to teach him. So, where did this strength come from? The cloaked man chuckled to himself. That child is going to be very interesting to watch. With that, he quietly disappeared into the shadows. Not long afterward, soldiers arrived to escort Zeke to the entrance exam for Dragon's Nest Academy, a test every 7-year-old in the Elragon family must take. Outside the academy gates, he meets a nervous boy named Rangus. Rangus explains that his father failed this very exam years ago and has carried the title of pseudo-dragon ever since. It's one of the lowest positions in the Elragon family's strict hierarchy, where everyone is judged by talent and strength. Before the exam begins, another boy named Redden walks over and immediately starts mocking Rangus. As if insulting Rangus wasn't enough, he even insults his father. Zeke watches the whole exchange in silence. To him, it's loud, childish, and a complete waste of time. Besides, explaining that he used to be the strongest man alive 1,000 years ago isn't exactly something you bring up during your first day at school, so he keeps that little secret to himself. The entrance exam sounded simple enough. All they had to do was leave a mark on the giant enchanted stone behind the examiner. Each student got 3 attempts. Zeke almost laughed. After surviving the dragon blood trial as a baby, this felt disappointingly ordinary. Then the first student swung his sword. The blade shattered instantly, and the recoil broke the boy's arm in the same motion. The crowd froze. Rangus went pale, but Zeke narrowed his eyes instead. The examiner calmly explained that the stone regenerated almost instantly and reflected physical force 100 times stronger than the attack that struck it. For an entrance exam, Zeke muttered, "That's ridiculous." When his number was called, he walked forward without hesitation. The examiner told him to choose a weapon. Zeke shook his head. "I won't need one." The crowd erupted in disbelief. He placed a hand on the stone, felt the strange material beneath his palm, and realized it must have been created sometime during the 1,000 years since his first life. Interesting. Then he gathered source power into his fist. For the first time since being reborn, he used a real combat technique. Dragon Destruction Combat Arts. First form, Burst Strike. The punch exploded into the stone. The entire thing shattered apart. Dust, debris, and fragments flew across the arena as a shockwave swept through the crowd. When the dust cleared, Zeke stood there smiling while blood dripped from his injured hand. Still too much power for this body. The examiner stared at the destroyed stone in horror. That artifact was supposed to withstand anyone below 4 stars, and a 7-year-old had just blown it apart with his bare fist. The examiner finally snapped out of his shock and declared Zeke passed. One of the assistants handed him a small bottle filled with green liquid. It is a rare healing potion called Cloud-Piercing Clarity, wood brewed from monster cores and herbs pulled from secret realms capable of healing even old scars, though it won't actually raise his source power one bit. Rangus was still staring at him like he'd witnessed a miracle. Then Rangus's number was called. His first strike with a sword failed completely. His second attempt bounced off the stone and nearly threw him onto the ground. Redden and his friends burst into laughter. "Just give up already, son of a pseudo-dragon." Rangus lowered his head in humiliation. Zeke stepped forward. "Why are you using a sword?" Rangus blinked. "Because that's what my father taught me." Zeke turned to the examiner. "Is changing weapons against the rules?" "No." Zeke grinned. "Then you're lucky." He looked directly at Rangus. "Do you trust me?" After a long pause, Rangus nodded and grabbed a spear instead. "Good. Forget everything else. Just thrust straight through the stone." Rangus gathered his source power, and for the first time in his life, it flowed naturally through his weapon. He lunged forward. Thrust. The spear pierced clean through the enchanted stone. Silence. Then the entire testing ground exploded in shock, himself included. Redden's friends write it off as luck, but Redden goes quiet, seething that the kid he's bullied his whole life just outperformed him in front of everyone. Later, the family head Balsa Elragon arrived to addresses the new students in just a couple of sentences, yet his aura alone drops several kids straight to their knees, gasping under the pressure. Zeke, completely unbothered, mutters out loud that he doesn't like the guy mostly because Balsa never once smiles and radiates something that feels a lot like hatred. It's hard for him to believe this cold, distant man is supposed to be his father this time around. A far cheerier instructor follows up with a shorter, warmer speech that finally lets everyone breathe again. Assigned to the East Hall dorm, Zeke finds out his new roommate is once again Rangus. Like fate just decided the two of them are stuck together now. That night, while Rangus slept, Zeke stared out the window and reconsidered his plan to leave the family immediately. The enchanted stone, the healing medicine, the academy. Too many interesting things had appeared. Maybe staying here for a while won't be so bad. A month later, training at Dragon's Nest became brutal. Students carried massive weights while practicing the family's breathing technique, Dragon's Breath, one of the Aragon family's most important foundations. The instructor praised Leah Typhon Aragon for nearly reaching 2 stars. Then he noticed someone else. Zeke was holding the heavy dumbbells. While balancing additional stones on his head and arms like this was just a casual warm-up. The instructor could only stare. No one had ever properly trained this illegitimate child. So where had this strength come from? Zeke barely paid attention. What fascinated him was the technique itself. Dragon's Breath was a simplified descendant of the Dragon King's breathing technique he had created 1,000 years ago. His old technique worked even while moving in combat. The modern version was safer, easier, and weaker. Instead of being offended, he felt strangely proud. His creations had survived 1,000 years. After training, Zeke attacked the cafeteria like it owed him money. Plates disappeared one after another while the other students watched in disbelief. Rangus finally asked the question everyone was thinking. How can you eat that much? Zeke shrugged. If you want to get stronger, more eat and train harder. Before Rangus could respond, a calm voice interrupted. You're quite impressive. A silver-haired girl stood beside their table. Zeke blinked. And who are you supposed to be? Rangus nearly choked on his food. That's Master Leah, the family head's daughter. Oh, Zeke said. What do you want me to do about that? I don't know her. Rangus looked ready to die on the spot. Leah sat down across from him, clearly amused instead of offended. She offers Zeke a deal on the spot, join her as an ally now, and she'll back his ambitions later once she's family head. Zeke didn't even think about it. No. The cafeteria went silent. Leah frowned. Why not? Zeke stabbed his knife into the table. Because I don't serve anyone. He looked her straight in the eyes. I'm already the strongest person there is. For a brief moment, even Leah felt crushed by the confidence behind those words. Embarrassed and angry, Leah challenged him to a duel on the spot. Zeke sighed and kept eating for another bite before getting up. Minutes later, half the academy had gathered at the training grounds. Rangus hurriedly explained that Leah wasn't just Balsa's daughter. She was a prodigy who had mastered the Typhon family's hereditary lightning greatsword technique. Zeke listened for a moment and shrugged. I understood about 3 words of that. Sounds fun. Leah drew her greatsword, lightning crackling around the blade. The duel started instantly. Her speed shocked everyone. Despite wielding a massive sword, she moved like a bolt of lightning, forcing Zeke to dodge one strike after another. The crowd quickly decided the illegitimate son was finished. Zeke disagreed. He was having fun. Lee's attacks became faster and heavier with every exchange. Then, under the pressure of battle, she broke through and reached 2 stars right in front of everyone. Golden lightning erupted around her. Now I'll show you my real power, she declared. Lightning flash. Zeke was forced back for the first time. Lightning net. Crackling electricity spread across the ground, barely missing him. Instead of panicking, Zeke's eyes lit up with curiosity. He deliberately allowed several attacks to land while secretly circulating Dragon King's breath, studying the flow of her lightning from the inside. By the time Leah unleashed her first secret art, Heaven's Thunder, Zeke had already figured it out. The lightning didn't destroy him. It taught him. Golden electricity suddenly exploded from Zeke's body. Leah stared in horror. How do you have a lightning aura? Zeke looked at the sparks dancing across his skin and grinned. Honestly, I was trying to figure out how yours worked. Zeke's body surged with golden lightning as he ascended to 2 stars, moving with newfound speed and power. Facing Leah, they blurred into golden streaks of light and thunder, their battle too swift even for Rangus to follow. Zeke, reading her every move, unleashed his new technique, Dragon Destruction Combat Arts, Lightning Peak, a devastating strike that brought Leah to her knees. Offering respect, he invited her to spar again. After a long pause, she accepted his hand and admitted defeat. Hours later, deep inside a dimensional rift, Balsa Aragon cut down a horde of monsters with a single swing of his sword. As he prepared to leave, a soldier rushed forward with a report. "My lord, Leah has reached 2 stars at the age of 7. He barely acknowledged it. That was simply the level of talent he expected from his daughter. The soldier then added one more detail almost as an afterthought. Leah hadn't won her latest sparring match. She had actually been defeated by an illegitimate child named Zeke, the son of a maid who had died shortly after giving birth. That single sentence finally caught Balsa's attention. Instead of dismissing the report, he immediately ordered Dragon Nest to move the Academy's first survival examination ahead of schedule. He also summoned Freya, the famed Tempest Wind and a 6-star officer of the Black Dragon Corps, personally assigning her to oversee the exam and closely observe Zeke. If an illegitimate child could defeat one of the family's greatest young geniuses, Balsa intended to discover exactly what made him so different. When the students gathered the next day, they were surprised to find a new instructor waiting for them. Freya wasted no time announcing their first major examination. For the next month, every student would be sent into Poison Dragon Mountain, a place so toxic that brushing against the wrong leaf can kill a grown adult outright. Students have to protect a crystal orb the whole month, while upperclassmen actively hunt them down trying to steal it, and losing your orb means getting expelled on the spot. Leah quickly assembled a group consisting of Rangus, Celine, and Raymond. Meanwhile, Zeke rejected every invitation that came his way. While everyone else believed safety came from numbers, Zeke had already decided he would perform better alone. Not long after entering the mountain, during the exam, Rangus is cornered by an upperclassman whose power overwhelms him. Remembering Zeke's advice to endure and wait for an opening when force doesn't work, Rangus holds his ground patiently. Eventually, he lands the finishing blow and breaks through to 1 star right in the heat of battle. Shortly after, Lee's group was ambushed by another team of upperclassmen. Fortunately, she remembered a piece of advice Zeke had given her weeks earlier. Instead of relying entirely on her lightning greatsword, she surprised everyone by incorporating axe techniques into her fighting style, a switch that completely blindsides her attackers. Meanwhile, Zeke was causing problems of his own. Instead of avoiding the upperclassmen like every other first year, he actively hunted them down. One by one, experienced senior students found themselves defeated by a 7-year-old illegitimate child. Before long, stories spread throughout Poison Dragon Mountain, and students began referring to him by a new nickname, the Demon Child of East Hall. The instructors monitoring the examination soon noticed something unbelievable. Rather than chasing first-year students, many upperclassmen had started running away the moment they spotted Zeke, which none of them have ever seen happen before. Partway through, on a secret order from Balsa himself, Freya releases an actual 3-star golem into the mountain just to see what this strange kid is really made of. The monster found Lee's group first. Their strongest attacks barely left a mark on its massive body. Even Lee's powerful lightning techniques couldn't slow its relentless advance. As the enormous golem pressed forward, unharmed and unstoppable, the group's hope began to fade. They might not survive this. Just as the golem readied its final blow, Zeke arrived. To everyone's disbelief, he caught the monster's massive punch with one hand, as if it were weightless. After a brief assessment, he looked almost disappointed. Destroying it from the outside would take too long. Instead, Zeke channeled his source power and activated the first form of his Dragon Destruction Combat Arts, Burst World. Rather than striking the golem's armor, he detonated his aura from within its body. The enormous construct exploded inwardly, shattering into countless fragments. A month after the survival examination ended, Balsa personally summoned Zeke. Instead of praising him, The family head demanded an explanation for why he had spent the entire month hunting upperclassmen instead of simply protecting his own crystal orb. Calmly, Zeke pointed out that no rule had ever forbidden students from attacking seniors. As absurd as the answer sounded, nobody in the room could deny that he was technically correct. Irritated by the boy's attitude, Balsa unleashed his overwhelming dragon pressure. The crushing aura was enough to force even experienced warriors to lower their heads. Yet, Zeke remained standing without the slightest reaction that, if anything, he appeared more annoyed than intimidated. Watching an illegitimate 7-year-old remain completely unfazed by the family head's dragon pressure left everyone present wondering whether they were witnessing reality or a dream. Rather than punishing Zeke, Balsa rewarded him for destroying the 3-star golem. He was given a choice between two priceless rewards: access to the dragon treasury, filled with legendary weapons and rare treasures, or permission to enter the second floor of Dragon Hall, the Elragon family's vast archive of ancient records, forgotten history, and forbidden knowledge. While most would have chosen the treasury without hesitation, Zeke chose the archive, valuing knowledge above all. Having reincarnated after 1,000 years, he wanted to understand how the world had changed since his era. Meanwhile, Balsa was left deep in thought. After entering the second floor of Dragon Hall, Zeke wasted no time digging through its enormous collection of books. Since he had been gone for an entire 1,000 years, he treated every page like a missing piece of history. As he continued reading, he finally learned what had changed after his death. About 900 years ago, the barrier between worlds collapsed, revealing the Chaos Realm, a mysterious land filled with terrifying chaos beasts that threatened humanity. This invasion sparked a long, brutal war. However, the Chaos Realm wasn't only home to monsters. It was also inhabited by humans wielding a power unlike source power. They used magic. After years of fighting together against the Chaos Beasts, legendary female warriors from the Chaos Realm eventually married into the Elragon family. Their descendants went on to establish the 4 great branch families, whose influence still shaped much of the family's politics even 1,000 years after Zeke's first life. The more Zeke read, the more everything started making sense. The strange black mist surrounding the Anger Boar, Lee's unusual lightning abilities, even the strange powers he had witnessed since his rebirth. Everything seemed to trace back to the Chaos Realm. Out of everything he had discovered, however, one thing fascinated him more than anything else: magic. Unlike source power, it was an entirely different system of strength, one that had never existed during his lifetime. Naturally, Zeke wanted to learn everything about it. Unfortunately, no matter how many books he searched, he couldn't find a single volume explaining how magic actually worked. The deeper he searched, the more frustrated he became. It almost felt like someone had intentionally removed every book on the subject. Zeke's increasingly loud complaints echoed throughout Dragon Hall. A mysterious cloaked figure hidden somewhere on the upper floor keeps flinging books through the air, using invisible threads of source power, shushing him every time until finally, he gets forcibly thrown out of the hall entirely for being way too loud about wanting answers. Waiting near the entrance, the others compared the martial arts they had chosen. Rangus grabbed the Cloud Water Spear arts, Celine chose the Windflower Sword arts, Raymond took a Guardian Shield style, and Leica proudly walks away with the Heavy Wave Greatsword arts written by the family's very first patriarch and revised centuries later by the 15th head. Zeke stays quiet through all of it, privately amused that every single one of these techniques started out as his own, apparently polished up later by someone he's suddenly very curious to learn more about. 5 years pass, and Balsa gets an urgent report that a special rift has appeared near the abundant dragon forest right on the border of a rival house, the Kerberos family, and that the Kerberos family will almost certainly sniff out the rift soon too. Balsa immediately orders a brand new selection exam across every Dragon Hall to find fighters for the job. Leading up to it, Zeke's training for his friends turns openly brutal, letting Rangus, Celine, and Raymond hit him with everything they've got barehanded just so he can toughen his body by absorbing the damage. Leica stops by to watch and admits the whole thing looks completely insane, mentioning almost casually that the seniors have started calling Zeke the Eastern Hall's demon child behind his back. She also lets it slip that they'll soon be fighting students from the other dragon halls and adds with real unease that West Hall has that guy one of the other head candidates, someone even she seems genuinely wary of. The selection tournament gets announced soon after pitting all four dragon halls east, west, south, and north against each other, with the winning hall earning some unspecified special mission. When an upperclassman named Rick insists that only upperclassmen should be allowed to compete, Laika, now 3-star herself after years of hard training, pushes back directly and forces a compromise where the preliminaries get opened up to every grade. Zeke makes sure Ranga, Celine, and Raymond all sign up too, telling them plainly that if they can't show results now after years of training together, there's never going to be a better time to prove it. When the matches start, East Hall's lowerclassmen steamroll their upperclassmen opponents so hard that the crowd starts wondering if the seniors got weak this year, before realizing the real story: the lowerclassmen have turned into monsters. Rick, humiliated and refusing to accept it, corners Zeke afterward, insisting that star level is the only thing that decides strength. Zeke just shrugs it off, tells him stars are just a number, and the strong are whoever actually wins, then knocks Rick out cold with one punch and cheerfully says he trained well, a compliment that lands more like an insult given the timing. Word spreads fast through the halls that East Hall's lowerclassmen aren't a joke this year, and by the time the actual bracket gets drawn, half the students watching are more curious about Zeke than about who's supposed to be the tournament favorite. Once the brackets are drawn, East Hall is set to face North Hall first, and Zeke gets picked as East representative over Laika herself, since she's blunt enough to point out he's simply the strongest one they've got. Laika's own cousin Sandy Tyona refused to accept and calls Zeke a mere bastard child to his face. Standing next to her is Edgy's Vanblade, considered a once-in-a-century genius with a sword, and unlike Sandy, he seems genuinely thrilled at the idea of fighting Zeke and says so without a shred of arrogance. The East versus North matches open rough.